Mountain beekeepers in the Swiss Alps, the Carpathians, and the Russian highlands run hives through winters that would kill every commercial colony in America. And they do it with a $1 method that the beekeeping supply industry has been quietly keeping out of every beginner course for decades. So why does everyone in the hobby world keep buying expensive winter wraps and heated equipment when the real answer costs $1? Here is what most beekeepers in cold climates are doing wrong, and it starts with a misunderstanding of what actually kills a hive in winter. Most people assume bees freeze to death. That is not what happens. A healthy colony generates enough heat from their winter cluster to keep the core temperature above 80 degrees even when the exterior temperature is well below zero. The bees themselves are not the problem. The moisture is. When a cluster of 20,000 bees breathes through a sealed hive all winter, they produce significant amounts of water vapor. That vapor rises, hits the cold roof of the hive, condenses, and drips back down onto the cluster as cold water. A bee can survive 10 below zero. A bee cannot survive being soaked in 34-degree water inside a hive that is otherwise warm. The cluster chills and collapses not from cold, but from dampness. And the commercial beekeeping world has spent 50 years selling you the wrong solution to that problem. They sell insulated hive wraps that trap moisture inside. They sell entrance reducers that cut airflow without addressing condensation. They sell heated hive floors that add energy cost without solving the vapor problem. And every spring, when the losses come in at 30, 40, 50%, the same industry sells you replacement packages to start again. The mountain beekeepers never fell for this because they could not afford to. In the Carpathian tradition, in the Swiss Alpine apiaries, in the old Russian beekeeping villages, losing a colony to winter was a genuine economic catastrophe, so they solved the actual problem. The solution is a moisture quilt, and it costs roughly $1 to build from materials most people already have. A moisture quilt is a shallow wooden box, the same footprint as your hive body, filled with 3 to 4 inches of dry wood shavings, or sawdust. It sits directly on top of your top bars or inner cover with a ventilation gap, and it does two things simultaneously. First, it absorbs the rising water vapor before it can reach the cold roof and condense into drips. Second, it allows that moisture to escape through small vent holes drilled into the sides of the box, moving the vapor out of the hive rather than trapping it inside. The wood shavings cost nothing if you have access to any woodworking shop, a lumber yard, or a neighbor with a table saw. They will take a free bag every single time, rather than throw it in the trash. A piece of window screen to keep bees out of the shavings costs under $1 at any hardware store. The box itself can be built from scrap lumber in an afternoon. Total investment, $1 and 2 hours. The results, documented repeatedly across traditional European beekeeping and increasingly in American research on natural hive management, are dramatic. Colonies overwintered with moisture quilts show survival rates 20 to 40 percentage points higher than identically managed colonies without them. Not because the bees are warmer, because they are dry. To understand why this was buried, you have to understand how the modern beekeeping supply industry is structured. The top 5 beekeeping equipment suppliers in North America generate a significant portion of their annual revenue from winter preparation products: hive wraps, insulated covers, ventilated bottom boards with complex design features, heated mats, moisture control inner covers with proprietary designs. These products retail for $25 to $150 per hive. In an industry where the average hobbyist runs 3 to 5 hives, that is $75 to $750 per beekeeper per winter. A moisture quilt built from free wood shavings and scrap lumber replaces all of it. It is not patentable, it cannot be branded. It cannot generate recurring annual revenue because it lasts for years, and it works better than anything on the market. This is not a fringe claim. The Warre hive, a traditional French hive design developed in the early 1900s, incorporated a moisture quilt as a standard component from its first documentation. Swiss beekeepers have used variations of this system since at least the 18th century. Traditional Slovenian hive designs, still in use today across Central Europe, rely entirely on passive moisture management through ventilated wooden construction rather than any purchased intervention. The knowledge did not disappear. It was made inconvenient by an industry that profits from selling you a problem solution rather than showing you how to prevent the problem from occurring. Here is how to build it correctly, because the details matter. The box dimensions should match your hive exactly, whether you run Langstroth 8-frame, 10-frame, or a non-standard size. The depth should be 3 to 4 inches minimum. Shallower than that, and you lose absorptive capacity. Deeper is acceptable, but unnecessary. Drill 3 to 4 half-inch holes on each side near the top of the box, covered with window screen on the inside to prevent robbing or bee entry. Fill the box with dry wood shavings, not sawdust, dust fine enough to compact, not wood chips large enough to leave air gaps. Standard small animal bedding from any pet store, the kind sold for hamsters and rabbits, is exactly the right material and costs about $6 for enough to fill multiple quilts. Place a piece of burlap or landscape fabric between the shavings and the top bars to prevent bees from moving up into the quilt material. Inspect the quilt in late January or early February in cold climates. If the shavings feel damp, remove them, let them dry in a warm space, and replace. In most climates, you will not need to do this more than once per winter. The shavings are doing their job and absorbing rather than saturating. Combine the moisture quilt with upper ventilation. A small upper entrance, even a 1/4-inch gap, allows the vapor the quilt misses to escape passively. Lower entrance reducers help with draft management. Between these two simple passive systems, you have replicated what mountain beekeepers have used for generations. Let me tell you what changed everything at Dave's Hive. My third winter keeping bees, I lost 2 out of 4 colonies. Both were strong going into October. Both had adequate honey stores. I had done everything the book said, reduced the entrance, wrapped with insulated foam, checked stores in December. February came and both hives were dead. When I opened them, the comb was black with mold. The bees had been soaked. A retired beekeeper at the local association meeting that spring looked at my photos and said one sentence. He said, "You sealed them in with their own water." He told me about moisture quilts. He had learned the concept from a Swiss beekeeper who visited his area in the 1980s and never charged a cent for the information. I built 4 quilts from scrap pine boards and a bag of rabbit bedding from the pet store. Total cost $8 for the bedding. The following winter, 4 for 4 survival. Every colony came through strong and building population before the first spring flow. The winter after that, same result. I have not lost a colony to winter since. The mountain beekeepers did not hide this knowledge deliberately. It was simply never in anyone's financial interest to broadcast it. Now you know it. Here are the mistakes that prevent this from working. Mistake 1. Using wet or green wood shavings. If the shavings have any moisture content when you install them, they cannot absorb more. Dry is the only option. Kiln-dried pet bedding is the most reliable source. Mistake 2. No upper ventilation. The quilt handles most moisture, but needs a pathway for remaining vapor to exit. A fully sealed hive above the quilt defeats the system. A small gap or upper entrance is essential. Mistake 3. Installing too late. The moisture quilt should be in place before your first sustained cold period. Installing in December, when the cluster is already condensed and stressed, is less effective than installing in October, when the hive is still managing temperature actively. Mistake 4. Not checking mid-winter. One inspection of the quilt material in January takes 5 minutes and tells you everything about how your hive is managing moisture. Saturated shavings mean you have an airflow problem to address. Dry shavings mean the system is working. Picture your apiary next winter running this system. 4 quilts sitting on 4 hives, wood shavings dry and actively absorbing. Upper vents allowing vapor to escape passively. Colonies clustering through January and February without the cold water drip that kills so many commercial operations. February arrives and every hive is alive, warm, and building. You did not buy a single winter product from a supplier catalog. You did not wrap anything in foam. You spent $8 on pet bedding and 2 afternoons on woodworking. Your winter loss rate dropped to near zero. The mountain beekeepers figured this out without a single YouTube video or beekeeping forum. They figured it out because losing a hive cost them something real, and they solved the actual problem instead of buying the industry's answer to it. Drop a comment right now and tell me what your winter loss rate has looked like. I read every one at Dave's Hive. Subscribe and turn on notifications because next week we are covering the full winter preparation calendar, week by week, so your colonies go into cold weather in the strongest possible condition. The answer was always $1 and a wooden box. Now you know how to build it.